The Dyson 360 Heurist, which I've got over here, is not only a cute little robot vacuum cleaner, but it's also pretty unique in many ways. It's Dyson's only robot vacuum cleaner at the time of making this video. It's the second generation, should I say. It's also got a slightly different dimension and form factor over pretty much all of its rivals, and it uses some unique technology which we're going to be talking about in this video. The biggest sticking point, however, for most consumers is the actual price. It's very expensive. At an £800 price tag, it sits almost 2 times more than some of the other flagship robot vacuum cleaners, or indeed other Dyson products, in other words corded or stick vacuum cleaners, making it one of the most expensive products, and specifically vacuum cleaners, the actual Dyson sells. So in this video we're going to be seeing if it's actually worth it, how it compares to some of its competitors, and furthermore if it's something that you should actually buy or even consider. And if you'd like to purchase it, links in the description below will take you to your relevant stores. And if you want to keep up with the channel and want to see more detailed videos like this one, definitely do subscribe and hit that bell notification so you can get notified when there's any videos that go live. Now also in the description you'll find links to my social media platforms and a link to Totally EV. It's a website that concentrates on all electric and hybrid vehicles, and you can keep up with the latest news and reviews, be it on YouTube or indeed on the website. So to kick things off, I must talk about the design of the product. I think aesthetically it looks absolutely fantastic. It sticks out from the rest of its rivals, whereby it actually looks like a, well, premium looking device and doesn't have a kind of bland exterior. Now, the design of it might not actually concern a lot of people because, well, truthfully, you might not be seeing it most of the time because you'll just be wanting to do it when you're out of the house. In this respect, the Dyson vacuum cleaner does have a selling point and also a major disadvantage. The selling point is the fact that it's, well, quite circular, and therefore means that it can fit in between certain areas where longer or elongated vacuum cleaners won't be able to fit in between. However, the disadvantage is that it's pretty tall. By tall, it means that it can't actually fit under a lot of furniture. So, for example, your sofa, or in my case, let's say my TV cabinet. At which point I still have to resort to a traditional vacuum cleaner in order to clean those areas which are effectively not going to be able to be reached by the robot vacuum cleaner, which might defeat the point for certain individuals who will want to use a vacuum cleaner to get to hard to reach places. Now, its uniqueness doesn't really stop there, because underneath the device you'll find a set of tracks where normally you'll find regular wheels. This is in order for the robot vacuum cleaner to climb or go over obstacles a little bit easier, and actually from my experience I found it to be really effective in this domain. It also has got a little bit of suspension allowing it to essentially go up and down places as well. Not exactly going up and down stairs, but over, let's say, a little bit of rougher areas. Now, the also brush head is elongated. In other words, it kind of protrudes from the overall design of the robot vacuum cleaner. Now, if you compare it like for like with other robot vacuum cleaners, I think you'll find it's actually pretty similar in terms of the overall coverage that it'll actually clean. But given the dimensions and the size and styling of the Dyson one, it makes for, well, great sense that Dyson have actually incorporated a larger brush head than the actual device might allow, so therefore protruding a little bit. Now, speaking about the brush head, it's easy enough to get out. It does take a little bit of force, you kind of have to yank it out a bit, and in order to clean it, it can be a little bit tricky given the brush heads are a little bit smaller, so therefore you might need a knife or something to kind of cut free, let's say you've got tangled hair in there, and then allow yourself to actually clean it. In terms of cleaning, you can also clean its filters with relative ease, and this actually moves me on to my next point, which is the actual bin. Now, the bin capacity is rated at 0.33 litres. In comparison to other robot vacuum cleaners, this is actually pretty small, so therefore you're going to have to empty out quite a bit. In comparison, let's say the Neato D7 has a 0.7 litre bin capacity. That's not exactly massive either, and you look at, let's say, regular vacuum cleaners, you'll be looking at over a litre. So it's kind of, again, to be expected of robot vacuum cleaners will have a smaller capacity, but the Dyson really does take it to another level where 0.33 litres does get filled up extremely quickly. Now, on that note, I did find that getting it out of the robot vacuum cleaner was very intuitive, and actually cleaning it out meant that you didn't actually have to get your hands dirty at all, which is not the same that I could say about some of its rivals, whereby you kind of have to fish into their bin compartments in order to get dust out. Here, because it's using the same sort of cyclone technology that Dyson use with their corded or cordless vacuum cleaners, it means for, well, very easy use and also a means of actually cleaning it out. Now moving on, we have got technology, and there's a few different elements I want to talk about here, and we'll get onto the app separately as well. First off, in terms of the actual technology of the robot vacuum cleaner, it doesn't use regular LiDAR sensors that some of its competitors will do. Instead, it uses cameras and light sensors as well around the 360 Heurist's kind of top shell in order to not only map out the room but also navigate itself. Now traditionally this would mean that camera-based robot vacuum cleaners will struggle at night. Thankfully the 360 Heurist also has LED lights, meaning it illuminates itself when it's going facing darker scenarios and therefore allows it to navigate without having the need of, well, bright sunlight or lights being on. This does have its pros and cons, and we'll talk about mapping in just a bit. And now we get on to the app, which is very much fundamental in terms of you using the robot vacuum cleaner. Now on the top left hand side you can access the robot vacuum cleaner, you can select it and of course add other machines if you so wish and go to your account. Now the main tab over here is what's very much fundamental because it gives you the status of your robot vacuum cleaner's charge level and if it's ready or not to clean. Now on the left hand side, the bottom left that is, it gives you the activity that you've had during the day and it tells you how many charges it's had, charging time and indeed the where it's actually cleaned, and in the middle one is actually when you're going to be using it if you want to actually go and activate it. So right now you can see I have got different zones and you can select each zone, so you can select several zones and it will give you the estimated time and also how many charges is required. So as soon as you go over a certain time it will then add a separate charge and therefore will dock. Each mode, as in each location, can also be given a different sort of speed, so you can have the quiet, high or max modes, so therefore you can interchange and the robot vacuum cleaner will interchange between them, so that's quite useful. And indeed you can also clean the entirety of your areas, so you can clean the entire house and you can clean it in 3 separate modes depending on the power levels. Now how can you do that? Well, not only can you do it manually, but you can also schedule it. So let's say for example we create a schedule, we want to do it on a certain day at a certain time, and then you can set the different the speed that you want and where it's actually going to clean. Select that for example, and then add that to your schedule and then add an event so that at that time during that day it will clean those areas at that speed. So it makes it very useful for scheduling for those people who want to have a set schedule. In my case, I actually prefer to do it manually because I like to see where there is dirt and actually make the robot vacuum cleaner clean where it needs be. Now, as I mentioned before, in terms of technology, it will need to map it out and it will do so via the camera sensor, which is found at the top. And this will create a map of your entire home. You can see over here, I've got a map of my home and it does a pretty accurate job. While it does take a long time, it does do a relatively accurate job. There's certain areas which it could do better, but the more you use it, the better it gets. And I've been using the robot vacuum cleaner for give or take a month now. Now you can manage the areas, but if you do so, you'll have to reset the map. So that's, for example, when you've named, let's say, kitchen and living room, you can name it. So you've got, in my case, I've named it home, and you can also manage the restrictions. Now these are kind of no-go lines. In other words, where it shouldn't clean. So after it's done its map, you come in and integrate a no-go line. And in my case, it's pretty much as the names might suggest. It's like PC cables, TV cables, places I just don't want the vacuum cleaner to go because either I will clean it myself or I just don't want it to get tangled while I'm away and therefore can't supervise it. It's very easy to create, and you can create 3 separate modes. You can avoid it, no brush or no climb, for example. Very useful for different scenarios and different homes. In my case, it's just mainly just the fact of the cable, so turning off the brush is very much recommended. Now finally, in terms of the settings cog, it gives you an idea of what your robot settings are in terms of serial number and all that stuff, and also in terms of firmware where it can update over the air. Now while the app is very nice and clean and very easy to use, there is a problem, however. I found myself often losing connection to the robot vacuum cleaner, whereby I had to physically remove the vacuum cleaner from its dock, 30 seconds later pop it on, and somewhat almost hope that it would actually reconnect, where often it took several times to do this, at which point I was just effectively losing time for no given reason. Furthermore, even when the app was running and the robot vacuum cleaner was doing its cleaning job, if you were to change between app, or let's say lock your phone and come back to the app, specifically giving it several hours, for example, in certain longer cleans, the app would simply crash and therefore you would have to relaunch it. It just seemed a little bit odd given the fact that, well, this product is very much a tech-centric product, and in some fundamental ways just didn't work how I expected it to work, specifically for a very expensive and premium product. Now, with that all aside, let's get on to the actual performance. And first off, I do want to talk about the noise. I actually find it subjectively perfectly fine. I didn't feel that it was overly loud or, let's say, really quiet. It kind of sat in between. So to give you kind of a little indication as to how it actually sounds, I'll cycle the video in 3 different modes and you'll be able to hear for yourself. Just check out the annotations at the bottom so you can keep up with which mode it's actually running at. Now next up we get onto performance, and first off I do want to talk about the 3 different modes, where each of them do essentially what they say on the tin. One is slightly quieter, the other one has got a high mode, and the other one has got the maximum mode and therefore will drain the battery. Now, in terms of their performance on hard flooring, I found that in its lowest mode, it didn't seem to do as well in terms of picking up small, finer debris from small crevices, so for example on my kitchen tiles, and equally it didn't do as well of a job on cleaning on carpet. In my case, it was medium pile to, well, shortish to medium pile carpet, and it just didn't seem to really get all the small little oats or indeed much of the flour. Move it on to the medium mode, or in this case they call high mode. It does a much better job on hard flooring, pretty much perfect to say the least, and on carpet it does seem to fall short a little bit in terms of it picking up smaller, finer debris which have been ingrained into carpet fibres. Again, here you might have to resort to using a normal vacuum cleaner. Now move on to its max mode, which is the loudest of the 3, as you might have heard before. Then it will do again a flawless job on hard flooring, and on carpet it will do a much better job than its medium mode. The only thing to consider, however, is that it still doesn't seem to get every single, well, dirt and debris that there is on carpet, be it on medium to long pile carpet. If you have short pile carpet, however, then it'll be pretty much equivalent to what you'd expect on its hard flooring performance. What I'm ultimately trying to say over here is that it is one of the better robot vacuum cleaners that are on the market. I have seen the Neato D7 outperform it in certain domains whilst being beaten in others. So there's no real clear winner for me, but in terms of overall suction power, I think Dyson have done a good job in achieving, well, a very strong suction from a relatively small device with a small brush head. Now in terms of edge cleaning, it's a little bit hard to test because it doesn't have actually manual controls, but what I found is that if it was running along the side of a wall, it would do a great job. If, however, it was going towards a wall and doing like a 360 spin, it wouldn't really get the parts of the edge. Now my tests are not quite realistic. I don't see that most people will have flour and oats placed in that sort of fashion, but it's just worth bearing in mind that if you want a good edge cleaning performance, then you'll have to kind of, well, hope that it kind of runs alongside the wall rather than just go towards it and do a 360 spin. This is very much the same case with a lot of other robot vacuum cleaners, and it's kind of common behavior that, from what I've noted at least and from what I've tested, and this respect means that I often have to resort to using a regular vacuum cleaner using a crevice tool in order to get all the debris from the side of the walls. Now past that, we have actually got the battery life, and here it's got up to 75 minutes of runtime, but that's in quiet mode. Realistically, most people won't really care about the runtime because ultimately it's going to be docking each time it needs to dock and therefore going about its regular day, whereby you're not going to be too bothered about how long it actually takes. However, it is worth bearing in mind that the longer it runs, or the longer it needs to charge, for example, and then do its thing, means that, well, you might be disturbed for a longer period of time or have to worry or schedule your day around the robot vacuum cleaner do its thing. For example, take me, where I record a lot of videos. It means that I don't want a vacuum cleaner running at certain periods of the day because I just want to concentrate on doing videos without a kind of humming sound that's going in the background and potentially bumping around. Now, in this respect, the Dyson vacuum cleaner takes an absolute age, not only to clean but also to set up. So when you first go and set it up in terms of mapping, it will take a very long time mapping out your entire house. But you might think, okay, well, once the initial mapping is done, then you don't really have to worry about how long it takes. Well, that's wrong again, because the Dyson vacuum cleaner often will do a little bit of a recce around where it's docked and then go to the set location. Then when it gets to the location, it does several passes in different ways and sometimes even forgets that it's done a certain area or forgotten that it's actually missed out an area, will go towards back its base, as in still cleaning, and then realize actually I need to go back to point A in the room in order to make sure that it's clean, so then it will go back and do its job. What this does ensure, however, is that it does a very thorough job in terms of cleaning every single place that it's actually mapped out. But then again, this also leads me on to my next point, where I actually found that due to the fact it's using cameras rather than using LiDAR sensors, or maybe a combination of them, it meant that sometimes it would miss out certain areas repeatedly, even if I had used the vacuum cleaner for an elongated period of time, where I've just allowed it to learn my floor map a little bit more and, well, just to get used to it. Unfortunately, certain areas of my kitchen, for example, would just not be cleaned. Certain areas of the bedroom as well would just refuse to be cleaned every single time, and it just seemed a little bit counterintuitive because ultimately you want to have the robot set it out and just go. On that subject, I also found it very frustrating that if it were to get stuck, it would repeatedly try to get back home but would just fail to do so. So let's say, for example, it goes around cleaning a room and let's say someone closes a door on it, or let's say even it accidentally bumps into the door, gently closing it, and therefore means it essentially can't get out. Other robot vacuum cleaners that have done this will pretty much, not say immediately notify you, but they will try a few times and then say, okay, I've tried, I can't do it, let me send a notification through the app that, well, I am stuck and I need some help. The Dyson doesn't do that. It repeatedly tries and repeatedly fails to get out of a set location until you actually realize for yourself, what is my Dyson vacuum cleaner doing? And even via the app, you'll just see returning back to base or returning to start, rather than, oh, it's actually stuck in a set location and where it is. And this I found to be quite a fundamental flaw, because it meant that I couldn't quite trust a robot vacuum cleaner to do its job. Or, for example, if it were to get stuck, or let's say even get tangled, worse still, in a set of cables, that it wouldn't actually notify me to tell me, oh, by the way, something has happened to me, you should probably check me out and I'm going to stop all operations. Instead, it just repeatedly tries on and on again and consistently fails at trying to get home because, well, it can't, because there's a physical object in the way. Now, very much on this subject, I did find that the robot vacuum cleaner failed to recognize certain objects and sometimes just absolutely just shunted straight into them. I again read in terms of certain Dyson reviews, as in Dyson customer reviews, and found that some people had experienced even chipped plasterboards or chipped walls because the robot vacuum cleaner was bumping into it pretty hard. Now, I can't really say that I had the same sort of problem, but I did notice it bumping into places repeatedly, certain times and it wouldn't really learn from its mistake, even if it has just done it, which I found a little bit strange for something that should be quite smart. Now, it's not all really doom and gloom, because truthfully the Dyson 360 Heurist isn't a bad product. It's very aesthetically pleasing. It's got a very intuitive app which is very easy to use, be it if you're a tech geek or a technophobe. And furthermore, in terms of cleaning performance, at least as far as robot vacuum cleaners go, it's among one of the best. But fundamentally, it costs £800. It's almost double its nearest competitor, and one that I would potentially class as one of the best robot vacuum cleaners on the market. Which means that some of the problems that I've outlined throughout this review are kind of inexcusable, because you would expect pretty much near perfection, or a device that really does it all without you having to worry about a single thing. But of course, that's just my thoughts and opinions about it, so I'd be intrigued to hear your thoughts and of course your experiences if you've had them with other robot vacuum cleaners or indeed Dyson 360 Heurist. Do let me know down in the comment section below. And if you like more detailed reviews like this one, then definitely subscribe and hit that bell notification to keep up with the channel if you haven't already. And favourite and share, as it will not only help the channel grow, but also allow for people who are looking to make an informed purchasing decision to see this video and actually make their own decision and make up their own minds. Alright, well, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I've been Totally Dubbed. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.